So this, I think, kind of establishes at a very high level the core components to a Web3 go-to-market. I think they're at the very top, and people don't talk about it enough, which is the pre-launch and the community building. And I think one of the most important parts of kind of the pre-launch and the community building portion of that is defining who your community is. I think not enough people take a step back and think about who their audience should be rather than can be. I think that's because obviously crypto is still an emerging category, and any one crypto adjacent ends up kind of falling into the pool of what a user should be or can be for a platform like your guys' selves. But I do think there is a lot to be said when you take a step back and you think about who should be a part of your audience. And so I think we'll go through it in a little bit, but a lot of that should be data driven. There's a lot of good tools out there currently in market, and I'll show you that in a couple slides that allow you to basically identify who your user is. You can identify it by by chain basis. You can identify users by people who hold specific tokens, specific NFTs. They have different amounts of volume, and you can identify their profiles on a social level, so Twitter, Discord, Telegram, and really kind of find a way to target them at an individual level. And so if you create kind of your consumer profile, to go back to kind of marketing 101 terms, at the very beginning, I think it'll set you guys up for success in the future. Obviously, there's the token launch, plan launch, which is like what you guys are going through currently now by thinking about what your tokenomics would look like and how much you can possibly airdrop, and the list goes on. But I would say like the two most important components that at least pertain to marketing is one, the KOL round, and maybe for next section we can talk about like what that looks like, pricing out your KOL round, and then obviously airdrop strategy, which I think Matt did a fantastic job last time getting into more detail. So maybe I'll just like double click on the KOL stuff for a second. I think people don't appreciate enough the fact that it's really important to have a robust strategy on KOL rounds if you decide to do that. KOLs are obviously advocates for your project. They not only are advocates, but they legitimize it, right? By bringing eyeballs to the particular platform. And so in order to get the best KOLs possible in market, a lot of projects often do some form of a KOL round. And it's important to have favorable terms with KOLs, right? KOLs tend to not want to have longer cliffs or vesting periods that are that long because obviously they're looking for some form of upside. But if you can find a way to structure a beneficial KOL deal between you and the platform, you can basically have a really strong go-to-market strategy. The next kind of component is developing partnerships, and I'll get into what kind of like win-win partnerships really look like. But obviously, the best way to like grow your user base to date is to partnerships that are beneficial to both you and the person that you're partnering with. I think you can see in emerging layer ones and layer twos in particular, you see constant posts about people coming onto their platform. And by having those partnerships, you're exchanging audience, sharing audience, which becomes a really good top funnel for attracting users to the platform. And then the last one is obviously kind of self-explanatory, which is to execute your marketing and to execute your PR. I think that the most important components of this, oh, it sounds like someone might need to mute so that I hear some background. Perfect, thank you. The last component I would say is that awareness and consistency are the most important part to executing your market strategy. Awareness not in the sense of the obvious, oh, you need to get eyeballs. That would be inherently repetitive for me to say, but awareness and the ability to pivot to whatever is current in market, and I'll get into that at the very, very, very end. And then consistency is king. Like as much as it is tiresome, I will say that by launching a token, everyone here is kind of signing up to to spending the next couple of months of their life grinding away constantly to try to continue to engage with your community that you will build. And a part of that is being there as much as humanly possible. June, who's on this call, can attest that there's been many times where we've taken the foot off the gas for either a token launch or an NFT launch, and that has a direct correlation to the responsiveness of a community. And it becomes way more taxing to try to claw that back than to just continue to keep that up from the moment you're launching till the actual TGE occurs itself. Okay, so just to get into like the first component that we're talking about, I think that's like really important is this idea of win-win. Win-win is not something I came up with, but actually a very good partner of ours at Insomnia. And the concept of basically win-win is that most partnerships are about a fair exchange of value, right? You don't want to be doing partnerships that cost you money or are not fair to you and your users, right? So when thinking about your partnership strategy, which would be kind of a very big bulk of your marketing go-to-market plan, especially when you're trying to keep up consistent announcements on your Twitter and your socials, the most important thing to start with is kind of identifying your value points, right? Be honest about what you as a platform and what you as a community can contribute to another community, which makes it very easy to negotiate it when you get into more details when you're talking with these particular partners. Make the partnership easy, right? There is nothing worse than agreeing to a partnership and then that partner not having their stuff together. That could look like not having templated posts or poor scheduling when it comes to Twitter Spaces or AMAs, or not being able to give them the right logo vector or something like that, right? It's really important that when you do partnerships, you repeat and repeat and repeat the same kind of template to make it as easy as possible for them to work with you. And then the last part, which is kind of cross-pollination funnel, and I think it's a lot of what like we at Insomnia have been probably talking to you guys about up to this date, which is making sure that you have the right tech and the right platform to convert those users into actual kind of advocates and fans of your particular platform. This could look like having a Galaxy page where you have different tasks and missions that benefit both communities. But for the most part, I would recommend having something more bespoke and custom that engages their community and your community, so that you can convert those users into actual people who'll be there till the TGE itself. I got into this just a little bit just a second ago, but community, right? I think and some people have heard me say this before, but the most important thing about community is not just having numbers, right? Numbers are just vanity to be real with all you guys. I think if you look on Twitter right now and you search up pump.fun, which is probably the single most used crypto app in the world right now, and compare it to a blockchain we work with them, so I'm not going to say their name, but there's certain layer ones and layer twos that have vanity numbers of 1 million followers, for example, and they have barely any of the engagement. Why? Because they're focusing on numbers rather than turning their users into advocates. And so this is just kind of a very high level overview of how at least we think about this conversion. And marketing kind of people will show you how to turn consumers into advocates for products. I think that's extremely applicable to crypto itself. But if you're honest about it, the truth is that there's a period of curiosity, right? Users have a ton of questions. They might have entered the project for the first time. They have caution. They might lose interest if they're not satisfied with the information you provide them. And this is, to be frank, the most taxing to deal with from a user point of view. There's nothing like sitting in front of your computer answering hundreds and hundreds of questions, maybe 3 times over from the same person. But if you are able to help them understand what your product is, they then go into kind of what I would define as a research period, right? Satisfied users become confident in the project and start to become advocates, and they basically start to do some due diligence on what the product or what you guys are offering in general, right? And then the last point is obviously once they have satisfied kind of that particular need, to do the research, to have their questions answered, hopefully they become advocates for the projects, almost like super fans, right? People who go out and actually promote your particular project. Not only are they asking questions, they're actually going out there making content, making posts. The meme that we I think everyone here is probably used to is working for your bag, right? Like people who are actually out there working for the project because now they have some form of incentive for the upside of it to do well, right? And I think that's kind of like the most important point to drive home, which is that you have a successful marketing plan if you have someone who comes into your project, is asking questions, and then a week later is actually on Twitter promoting your project before TGE. The next point I think is kind of important to tell, and people don't talk about it enough, which is kind of narrative, right? I think that there is a lot lost when people don't think about how to tell a story when it comes to a particular project or platform. Obviously, this might be less appropriate for some of you guys, and more appropriate for others who might have more of a consumer-facing platform. But I think the logic still kind of stands, right? There's a teasing and speculating period, right? This might be people saying, hey, something's coming soon, teasers that drive hype and anticipation, right? And then from there, there's a period of informing and educating people away from the speculation, right? So now, hey, I'm intrigued, I'm engaged, now let me learn more. This can look like educational content that you have on your site. This could be, documentation that you drive people towards on Discord or Threads. Kind of the list goes on, right? And then from there, you expand and develop that narrative. Now that people are kind of caught up with kind of what you're doing, you start to tell that story a little bit more in depth. I think we've talked about that pretty in depth with the Kitty Punch team, which is they have a lot of great content, a lot of great narrative storytelling. Can we weave that into the daily experience that a user has when they're either doing missions or challenges, or they're doing activity on your platform? Can you enthrall them in that story more than just simply have it as a kind of like a vanity play? And then lastly, I think once a TG happens, people don't talk about it enough, which is the story doesn't end there, right? There's an analogy written here, which is it's not a movie, it's a TV series, right? It's supposed to continue the episode over and over and over and over again, because if you come to a conclusion, people will associate that with some finality of your project, and will obviously have probably some effect on either your token price or your community leaving, etc. So always plan to keep that story or that narrative going beyond simply the TGE itself. And in fact, the TGE should just be, episode one of many episodes of a TV show, based off that analogy. I think another kind of important point, which is, and this is more so like housekeeping stuff, but again, me and June can both tell you guys that there is nothing worse than someone catching something that's a bit off about your project, even if it's not intentional, right? This could look like, and I'll give you actually a story. We used to do some work for L'Oreal where we were running a DAO, and a lot of the funds that were basically generated for that particular DAO were being moved around in the background, right? They're a big corporation. They have to move it through multiple wallets. They had to move it to a Gnosis safe, et cetera, et cetera. But we did not make that very clear to our community. People who had obviously invested in the project or bought the particular NFT to participate in that DAO, being crypto people, saw that information was very public, right? And they saw those movements of funds without any form of communication. What did that do? That spiraled us into a week of basically retroactively trying to generate trust with our community, rather than having thought through the fact that, hey, this is going to happen, so we have to be very public about it from day one. So that's just another way of saying that it's really, really, really important to make sure that you're checking the trust checkbox, rather than kind of retroactively trying to earn that trust back after a mistake has been made. And I would go so far to say, highly scrutinize every action that you're going to do that might have some form of public knowledge, because someone will find out about it. I think I was talking to a couple of you guys earlier, which is around the question of how long does my point farming campaign go for? Do we not tell our community how long it's going to go for? Making those decisions are really important. If you decide, hey, we know it's going to last for X period of time, but we want people to feel like it's going to be quick, there's going to be a consequence of that later down the line where people get upset, right? And there's nothing like a community kind of folding on each other and building up that FUD, for lack of a better term, which then again breaks down the trust. So again, just to say, it's really important to establish trust with your community. Validation. I think obviously when we talk about marketing, there's going to be marketing that you guys do. There's going to be marketing through your partners. And the best way I could say that converts a user to someone who speculates about something to someone who might make a purchase, which I think is a lot of what you guys are trying to facilitate, especially purchase of a token. It's all about how many times have I seen that same message over and over and over again, right? Maybe they've seen it from a PR post. Maybe they've seen it from a tweet from a partner project that they've worked with, and you guys are doing a partnership with them. They've seen your logo 3, 4, 5 times. That becomes a form of validation to convert them into a person who might make a purchase, interact with your platform. The list goes on. I think the best way to do that, whether we like them or not, is obviously through KOLs. And so just to kind of tap into how do we determine a good KOL, I think these points are relatively obvious, but it's important to know, right? Does the KOL have a strong engagement and follower count, or is it a high follower count but low engagement? Do they write in-depth threads and tweets about projects? Do they actually take the time to understand the project, or do they do just kind of shills, right? Is there high quality content, or is it just like constant, fast, excessive, low quality content? And then I think one of the most telling things when determining whether to hire a KOL is, do they share their rates before they even ask about your project? I will tell you that every single time a KOL has been like, yes, super excited, this is how much I charge, it's always been a poor experience from our end. So having that person almost need to be convinced to work with you is always a good sign that they actually care and that they will end up being a better, cost per post than a KOL who just really wants to share their kind of rates with you right away. I think there's some kind of ways also to go around this, which is leveraging like Twitter analytics tools that tell you whether a profile's account is botted or has a lot of fake followers. There's tons of tools out there, Web3 and non-Web3 tools that allow you to look through this. There's ways to offset performance through affiliate or referral programs. And I'll show you some platforms in a second that allow you to do that. But basically, you can create an affiliate or referral program that rewards these KOLs on a conversion basis, right? For every person who commits $1, they get 25 cents, et cetera, right? And then lastly, going back to the whole KOL point, KOL round point, did they even join your KOL round, right? If they join your KOL round, you know that you have relatively aligned incentives, which makes it obviously easier for you guys to at least believe that they, will, again, with the terminology that we use, work for their upside, right? And so making sure that these kind of points or at least these kind of ways of checking or validating the KOL, it's important to do this ahead of any kind of agreement that you may have. But and we'll make some recommendations for all these kind of points that we're making of tools or platforms or partners that are in our network who can help you facilitate these agreements or programmatically facilitate these agreements. So I think those were the main kind of points around like how to go to market that I wanted to cover, all the way from general partnerships to becoming an advocate to conversion to identifying KOLs. Now I'm just going to get into probably some more practical stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of logos here, and maybe it'd be worth for you guys to take a screenshot. But I will also send you this site on a quarterly basis. There's this guy who basically does a overview of the current Web3 marketing stack, and he breaks it into the most relevant categories. And so as you can see here, there's a ton of platforms, right, that might be helpful to get you to market, rather than kind of having to learn from zero. There's questing platforms that allow you to basically leverage pre-existing communities to draw attention to your platform. And there's a list of amazing agencies that are helpful with go-to-market and marketing support and branding support. There are discovery tools, CRM tools, which I think we talked a little bit about around, like, data analytics. There's messaging tools. There's referral, just based off of kind of what we were talking about previously with KOLs. There's tools literally to help you build out referral and affiliate programs with KOLs themselves. But the biggest point I think I would make is that it's worth thinking about reaching out to all of these people. Frankly, going back to the whole point of like win-win partnerships, make sure that when you're having these conversations with these particular platforms, you're not just talking to them thinking, hey, I'm going to use their tech stack, or hey, I'm doing due diligence on what their solution offers, but hey, can we get a post from you guys saying that we're using their tech, right? Or hey, is there a longer term kind of agreement that we can draft to make this more of a meaningful relationship? All of these kind of opportunities to talk to startups like this or platforms like this can be additive to your marketing calendar. And I will say that you always think that you have enough content to be posting, but the truth is you don't. And the more opportunity you can create to have stuff be added to that particular marketing calendar, the more successful you will be at being consistently present from now to your TGE. So use your opportunity to talk to these platforms as a way to add stuff to your marketing calendar that your guys are probably crafting today. Again, anyone here, we have connections to some of these platforms. So if you guys are interested in any of them, like hit me or June up. We can kind of make the recommendations of which ones we frankly think are the best, because obviously there's some that are great and there's some that are not so great. But hopefully this gives you guys an overall kind of understanding of what's currently in market. Just to get into a little bit more detail around data, which I think I talked to you guys about at the very top of this project. I'm kind of a Cookie 3 shill, but they're a very good partner of ours. And more importantly, they have an amazing platform. Cookie 3 is basically an analytics platform for Web3. You can think about it as Google AdSense, but on like crypto rails and crypto steroids. And I've kind of used this as a hack when thinking about how to market my project. And it's actually the thing I do on day one when determining how to market my project. Why? Because it allows you to come to a conclusion around who your user actually is. Because everyone here is going to make an assumption around who they're marketing to and what that profile looks like, but only the data really rings true ultimately. And so it's really important to use a platform like Cookie 3 or a competitor, if you guys are already using something like this, to identify who could be your potential audience. I can get into this in more detail and even do one-on-one sessions with you guys to show you kind of how this works. But what I find kind of useful is to basically identify projects that I find similar to my own, or the ones that I'm marketing, and projects that particularly I want to copy the community of, right? From there, I identify smart contracts or NFTs or any form of on-chain asset that user base is holding. And then I scrape those wallets using Cookie 3's data platform. I take that wallet list and I upload it into basically an identifier system that tags the wallet to a pre-existing Twitter account, Telegram account, Discord ID. Why is that very useful? Well, because you can target those people now on Twitter using traditional kind of Twitter ads to convert them to your particular profile. The second thing is you can understand your user, right? You can take a look at the profiles that are identified as communities you guys want to kind of replicate. You could see what they're posting, you could see what their habits are, and you can begin to understand what the user profile is for your particular community. And then lastly, to go back to the whole win-win strategy, right? How do you decide which partnerships make the most sense, right? If you have a list of 1,000 users that are similar in community size or community shape that you guys are trying to replicate, and you're going through their Twitter profiles and you see the same kind of companies that they've been retweeting with or engaging with, you can identify partnerships that are going to be high ROI for you guys. There's nothing worse than going through a whole partnership process just to have a low conversion, right? So finding which partnerships make the most sense is honestly a data-driven kind of decision-making. So again, this is a really great platform, and I would recommend anyone to use it. And I'm happy to make any introductions to their team, and I'm sure the Redbeard guys will as well. But they do a great job at kind of day one how to market your particular project. Just to get into maybe something that might not be so unanimous here from an agreement standpoint. But what I find really, really, really important in crypto is the power of LinkedIn in your marketing push. We are so used to Twitter, we are so used to Telegram, we are so used to Discord, but ultimately LinkedIn tends to actually be a really, really, really good place to generate partnerships for your win-win strategy. And the best way to kind of take on a LinkedIn strategy is very simple, kind of like marketing 101 stuff, which is just create meaningful and consistent content. There is no algorithm out there that rewards consistent, meaningful content than LinkedIn. The more you post longer threads with more fleshed out ideas, the better reach you get on this platform time and time and time again. The next thing I would say is that, especially when you're trying to establish these partnerships for your go-to-market, once you start to get a following on LinkedIn, there is no better platform than LinkedIn to reach out to random people. There tends to be the ability to get to anyone very, very quickly via LinkedIn in the Web3 community, because again, we are a relatively small community when you think about it from a C-suite level, right? And so you can get to very senior people, especially if they're interacting with your posts relatively quickly. And then to that point, it becomes a top funnel for partnerships, right? I can't express enough how many times I've done posts on Twitter about an announcement that I'm doing. No one reaches out about it. But when I do it on LinkedIn, we get, 10 DMs about, hey, we should jump on a call. Hey, we should reconnect. Hey, this is really cool. Can you show us this case study? Maybe we could work together, right? So think about LinkedIn as a third or fourth platform for you guys to also manage, especially if you want to build your personal presence as a founder of your particular project. The next point I wanted to kind of make, and I think it's extremely relevant when you think about it in conversation with what's going on in the TON ecosystem, which is creating a sticky social community. And my thesis, at least, is that community can be built around tooling. And the best way I can describe that is by explaining kind of 4 groups, all of really polar opposite kind of foundation, but ultimately have kind of the same thesis around building tooling directly into their community, which makes them sticky. Study Together is basically a Discord for college students in the US to come together and basically figure out ways to study together. There's channels in there like Lo-Fi Beats or study desk setups or tools to basically give you study tips, which makes it really sticky for people who actually want to study together, which has allowed them to become basically the biggest study community on Discord to date. There's another example of a YouTuber called Pixelated Apollo, which I watched when I was a kid. But the reason his Discord is really sticky is because inside of his Discord, there are basically tools for weekly games. People who play this game that he basically streams, they can find other people, they have resources to find other connections, and they can basically build a community or find people to play along with, which ultimately becomes kind of a tooling suite for these people in this particular community. Midjourney is probably the best use case for this particular point, which is the command/imagine, right, in of itself is a tool, and as a result has yielded millions and millions and millions and millions of people to come together and basically create AI content, right? If you've ever used Midjourney versus something like ChatGPT or DALL-E to create content, you realize that Midjourney, in my opinion, is at least superior because the community aspect of it, of creating prompts and understanding how to prompt engineer, you can see other people's prompts, right? And so you can basically take from other people's knowledge and apply it to your own, which makes it a useful place not only to interact with the tool, but come for information, which makes it ultimately the stickiest generative platform out there today. And then the last one is Friends with Benefits, which is a DAO, crypto DAO, where basically you can host IRL events, but all of that is run through their Discord server. There's basically ways to fill out forms, apply for event keys. Those event keys allow you to have IRL events. The same Discord community allows you to then draw, eyeballs to wherever you're hosting those events, and it becomes kind of a circular experience where the same community members and the same people can come back time and time again to this social platform to find and host events in their kind of native areas, which makes it obviously a very, very, very sticky social community. And then the last point before I get into kind of some other points is, I think, identifying the right PR strategy. And this, and maybe next session we can have, maybe June, you can get into more detail around this. But I think that the most important parts of setting up a good PR strategy is to make sure that the PR firm understands your business more than anyone else. We've had PR firms in the past for Insomnia that frankly just don't understand what we do. Or you meet a senior person at a PR firm and they're the ones to sell you in the business, and then they disappear, right? And you're left with someone who doesn't really know what your business does on a day-to-day basis. So just make sure when you're identifying the PR firm that they understand what you do, and you're working with on a daily basis people who understand what you do. The next one is to make sure they have deep connections into both traditional and non-traditional PR firms. There's nothing worse than having a PR firm that doesn't actually have any, clout or ability to get you press. You always be somewhat semi-underwhelmed by the amount of traction a PR firm will actually get you, because they'll promise that they'll connect you directly to these people, but sometimes it doesn't convert. And so it's really important to have them prove to you guys when you're talking to them case studies in the past that they've had around creating the right PR and conversation. I would particularly say pay attention to the titles of the articles, because if they seem like they would align with kind of the lines or the one-liners that you guys would be writing or you guys would want to be written about you, then they might be a right fit. But if they, for example, if you guys are a more consumer platform and they do more kind of traditional PR titles, then maybe it might not be the right fit. And then the need for speed, I think, is also a really good point. The best PR is to basically hijack topics. For people who might not understand like PR hijacking, what that really means is that you take something in the conversation, in the zeitgeist, and you basically attach your name to it in some capacity, whether you are a market expert on that particular topic, whether your platform has a name that is associated with a topic that's hot in the news, whether you are a company that is in a sector of crypto that's doing really well. The list goes on, right? PR teams need to be able to identify what's really, really going on in your space and leverage that to get you into the news, which kind of becomes more secular to the first point, which is they need to understand your business, because if they don't understand your business, they're not going to understand what to hijack, right? So again, make sure that you are you make sure you have the right people who understand the crypto space being a part of your project from a PR point of view. Okay, so before I get into this kind of section of the presentation, I know this is going to get a little bit loopy, but bear with me till I get to the end. But I think it's important to talk about all this kind of go-to-market strategy and kind of more traditional points that I've been talking about for kind of the last like 35, 40 minutes. But I also think it's really important to acknowledge at least the crypto culture that exists today, right? I think Web3 marketing, there's an identity crisis, right? Here on the left, you see kind of more traditional marketing that we've been talking about for 35 minutes, which is PR. It's reports that like Chainlink came out with the other day. It's news like Larry Fink saying the next markets are going to be tokenized. It's loyalty programs built directly into your platform that convert users to fans of your tech. The list goes on. But then on the other side, let's be real, a lot of the attention is actually put on kind of this more fun, engaging, memey side of the crypto space. I would argue, and I think a lot of people here would argue, that the most successful marketing companies in the Web3 space have been companies like Polymart, right? For example, who have done kind of really, really, really memey marketing that has got them a ton of attention, and as a result has yielded them a ton of people on their platform. So this is kind of to say, and if you guys are like me and kind of deep in the meme coin culture, there's no culture without cult-like behavior. If you've paid attention to kind of like the meme coin cycle right now, there's a lot of people saying, oh, you should build a cult, right? It's more of a joke, but the whole point being is that there is no culture without cult-like behavior. And I will make the argument, and I'm happy to have anyone review me after I get through these slides, which is that one of the most traditional categories in all of the world is politics. And you can see that in the most recent election cycle, there's been a shift, especially when targeting younger audiences, around embracing meme culture to get audience engagement around their particular campaigns, right? As you can see some memes here, that these particular campaigns are kind of tapping into that cult-like meme culture to get awareness about their particular platform. And so when you guys think about marketing your project, please think about all the points that we've been going through for the last couple of minutes, but also think about where can I bump up against this kind of cult culture without fully kind of embracing it. So that's kind of the point I want to leave you guys with, is you don't have to start a cult, but you have to be aware where you can attach yourself to cult-like culture, right? And the most successful versions of crypto marketing have shown that. There's evidence for exactly this, right? When Bored Ape partnered with Adidas, it really sparked the bull run for the NFT market, because a major kind of hip, interesting brand partnering with a Bored Ape exploded culture in an almost cult-like moment, where almost every Bored Ape was wearing Adidas classics, right? They were posting everywhere on their Twitter feeds, and exploded the NFT cycle, which happened, a year ago. The point that I make about Polymart, right? This guy, Hugo, who is actually the intern voice, I don't know if he still is the intern voice, but was the intern voice for Polymart, was actually the reason a lot of traction was sent their way, because it was funny, it was engaging, it was cultural, and which drew a ton of users to their particular platform. And even this weekend, if you trade meme coins like me nonstop, you see Pump.fun, which is obviously, interacting with cult culture on a daily basis, posting a meme of Minecraft, which is now the newest kind of fad in the meme coin culture space, which allows them to kind of draw a ton of attention and a ton of volume to their platform, which ultimately, again, only benefits them because it creates more usage and it creates more users. So yeah, hopefully, I think that covers everything I wanted to get through. There's like 15 minutes left, and happy to answer any questions. But I hope that ending part, you guys kind of understand where I'm coming from this point of view.